This video is for business leaders and product developers interested in biomimicry and design. So this is actually a book review from a book called The Shark's Princess by Jay Harman. Unfortunately, the algorithm didn't really like that language, so I've called this episode Biomimicry Design, which is indeed the focus of this. So what this really is I love to do book reviews, and the reason I do that is because these are books I'm reading anyway. I think it can deliver value to other people, and it points out some of the principles I use on my own because I am and use what I teach, what I consult on, and that is lifelong education and eclectic education, purely for the purpose of keeping your brain agile, but also broadening your knowledge base, because we don't know what we don't know, and it very often really helps us to do this. So I just look at anything that I think might be interesting, even if it's directly or indirectly or not at all related to what I specifically do for business, and it rarely is anything but beneficial. Sometimes it's not a great book, and you usually don't hear about those because, unfortunately, our negativity bias, which is something else that entirely I can put reference to that, but I won't today, is much stronger than our positivity bias, if you want to call it that. So I focus on the books I recommend rather than the ones I don't, unless there's a compelling reason to do that. And even so, if I do it 1 in 4 or 5 times, as per the power of the negativity bias against the positive, or the positivity ratio as informed by Roy Baumeister in his book, The Power of Bad. Okay, so if anything in this video is useful to you, I would love to hear from you. Leave me a question, contact me in the comments, or contact me directly would be wonderful. Like, share, and subscribe would be wonderful. Thank you. So first I'm going to start with the parts that I disagree about, and there's a couple reasons for this, but mainly it addresses something very important that I talk about quite often, and that is that we all carry biases, especially for those things we know and love. It's not wrong, it's not a judgment, it just happens to be who we are as human beings, and anybody who says they're entirely unbiased is really not being honest with themselves, even if they believe it. And if they believe it, it's a lie told honestly, and we call that confabulation. So again, that's nothing wrong with that. It's just the nature of human beings. We all carry these, and that's why I talk about it so much. So that gets me all the way to the next part. Now, one of the reasons this is so important, and the reason I'm bringing it up in this book review, is research suggests, and I'll put a link to a video there, that the vast majority of executives actually exhibit, I'll put a link to the video that I refer to that, exhibit low self-awareness. And that's the vast majority of executive. I'm not claiming to be immune to that. In fact, I'm suggesting nobody is, but we can all improve it. And that's why I'm talking about this, is because we all need to be aware of that to be better. So now the book. So he talks about, this book is called The Shark's Paintbrush, as I think I already mentioned. It's by Jay Harman. I love this book. It's an excellent book, and I highly recommend it for anybody interested in biomimicry design, and especially with respect to product development, because he focuses at the end of the book in particular on that and what product development looks like in the real world. And having a decade of my own experience in this, I concur with him, even though some people who are biasly selling some products that licensing is everything. Unfortunately, licensing is not an easy way to go. It is a way to go, but it has its share of problems, and is rarely the ideal methodology for the inventor unless they plan to commercialize the product all the way themselves. Talk about that in a second, which is one of the main insights of this book. And one of his biases that he talks about is that nature is in perfect balance. Animals never destroy their own environment. Nature is in equilibrium. And though that's mostly true, It's the reason it's true, or my perspective of the reason it's true, supported by evidence, of course. And that is, first of all, there are animals. When I was in university, one of my instructors was an ethologist, which is a person who studies the behavior of animals in their natural environment. And he specifically pointed out, I think it was hippos, but there are animals who actually destroy their own direct environment. Though that's rare, it does happen. And it gets to the point that nature isn't perfect. Nature just has either a solution, or if that solution is maladaptive, that species or that population simply dies. So that's the reason why biomimicry is so valuable. We have a system of empirically derived results from 3.5 billion years of natural selection. This doesn't require, or in my opinion, at all in any way include intelligent design. It's totally unnecessary for this to happen. That's what the scientific evidence says. The religious part, we can't prove either way, so I don't address it. I myself am definitely an atheist, or more accurately, an optimistic nihilist. So let me think of some other examples. So even Indian populations, I'm Canadian, so native Canadian populations, or most nomadic hunters, people would go, well, they were in such good balance with nature. Yes and no. You have to understand the situation they were in. Their population was low, and they were a transient population, which meant for them it was practical to hunt an area almost to extinction and then move on. And that was sustainable because the population was low, and they would move on, so that they wouldn't come back to that area until it was huntable again. So that will work. Unfortunately, our species is getting to the point where there is nowhere left to do that kind of thing with. So this is not only a propensity of humanity, it's a propensity of other animals and species too. The reason biomimicry is so amazing is the fact that they've had that nature has had 3.5 billion years to get this right. So most of the designs that exist now are superbly adapted. So this book talks about that, and it talks about the shark's paintbrush. Really what it's talking about is how the surface of sharks is microscopically rough, and in particular two products that are associated with that. One is anti-fouling agents, or anti-fouling paints, because of their structure that goes on the hull of boats, and another one which is microturbulence around the boundary layer. That's the layer between two surfaces, between the surface of the hull of the boat, or the skin of the shark, and how there is shark skin structured swimsuits, which were so good that they were outlawed in competition, or at least limited in competition. So this book in general, and I can't believe it's already time, we only have a minute left. Essentially what this book talks about, and what makes it such a brilliant book, is that Jay Harman talks about real life examples. He is an industry insider who has developed many innovative products which are empirically demonstrated to be superior to the current things out there. But when he went into the industry, he experienced such things as Not Invented Here, and I'll put a video link there about Not Invented Here as well as in the description. And it turns out that of all the things this book can teach you, you really should. I'll also put a link in the description to Jay Harman's website for his book, The Shark's Paintbrush, and supplementary stuff, which is really good. I just found it. But essentially the lesson is this. If you are going to develop products, biomimicry is amazing because of all the R&D nature has already done on our behalf. So it's a really good place to look for great ideas and great innovations. Why reinvent the fin? But also that what his conclusion was, after looking at all aspects pretty much of product development, that one of the main insights he had was develop a complete product yourself that you can then use to leverage up and grow from a niche market to bring your product forward, because essentially all other paths he tried, and my experience aligns with this, involves people whose own interests are put way ahead of the developers. So this is just tragically short. It's going to go longer than 10 minutes, and I'm trying not to. But the bottom line is I highly recommend you read the book on biomimicry design and product development by Jay Harman, The Shark's Paintbrush. And the main insight from the book is develop and manufacture a complete product on your own, that is the inventor, to keep more or less complete control and to build yourself into the market and grow your niche and expand your product from there. Because regardless of the benefits it brings to other companies and licensing or venture capital individuals, it still is resistant, even if it's superior for them, because they have too many other biases of their own towards their interests, rather than the interest of how the product could help even their customers, even when it makes them more money. That is way too short and yet way too long. I'm already over time by almost 2 minutes. Apologies, I tried my best. This has been Crush It Club 145 Bio-Mimicry Design, book review of The Shark's Paintbrush by Jay Harman. My name is Tim B. Green. Bye for now.